By June 29th, the trial was over. By June 29th, the trial was over. The courtroom was cleared of everyone except the 9-member commission and the 3 prosecutors who were to act in some way. We got some sketches here. Hey there. Hey, everybody. Hi, everybody. So that's just Wallace made some sketches. Just the pictures are so much better than these sketches. So when they say you can't take a photo, a photograph or a camera, look how terrible. For posterity, these are the conspirators. These are the people that killed Abraham Lincoln. So for posterity's sake, who the hell are these people? All we got is this stupid ass sketch to go off of. And I've done some pretty decent sketches, right? It's just kind of pen and paper and whatnot. But there's nothing compared to a photograph. A photograph. So June 29th. June 29th is the last day of the trial. Why are we having a trial? Because Abraham Lincoln was murdered. Abraham Lincoln was murdered. And here's all the co-conspirators. All the co-conspirators are right here. In a painting. I don't even know. They probably didn't even meet all together. You got John Wilkes Booth right there, and then you got a bunch of characters. Now, the famous photographs that I remember is when they hang the people. So you got the gallows. You got the before picture, and then you have the after picture. There's the before picture. Everybody's getting their nooses on tight, get their fancy Sunday gowns and outfits on like Popeye, right? You got to make sure all the churchies get to be all churched up. And then, sayonara. You killed our fucking beloved president, you get hung. Now, you killed our beloved president, you get hung. And then some people want to sit there and try to say that some of them were innocent. None of the people that got hung were innocent. The most innocent, I would say, actually, is George Atzerodt. George Atzerodt was going to kill Andrew Johnson, goes to the hotel, gets chicken feet, gets cold feet, goes all chicken, and maybe just came to his senses. What the hell am I doing here? I'm just a goddamn carriage maker. I'm a goddamn carriage maker. I don't know how to rule a country. If we take out the leadership, then who's going to rule the country? So George Atzerodt goes to the hotel with the intent, right? There's deliberation, intention. There's a conspiracy. John Wilkes Booth, there was a small conspiracy. Goes to the hotel, gets cold feet, walks away, throws a knife into the gutter. End of story. So it's almost like a thought crime, right? It's almost like, because he thought about doing the thing, he did go to the hotel, he did wait around, take a drink. So it's kind of close, right? It's kind of close compared to Mary Surratt, who was the postal service, passing packages along. Big old racist piece of shit, white supremacist, just downright garbage. I bet John Wilkes Booth and all the men around her were doing it for her. And then Andrew Johnson said he was torn because, oh no, we're going to hang a woman. But if you don't hang the woman that's involved in the conspiracy, then all you're saying to the nation is, well, just get your woman to do it. If your woman commits the crime, well, then it's not a crime at all. And Andrew Johnson didn't want that, and that's absolutely true. She was in the middle of it, and then you also had Lewis Payne, who stabbed a whole bunch of people, but it was the Secretary of State's people, so he didn't even get close to the president, but he was part of the conspiracy. And then who else? You had, Booth was already killed out in the field, so there was one other person, George Atzerodt, Lewis Payne, Mary Surratt, and Harold. There's a guy named Harold, the guy who had took Lewis Payne to the Secretary of State. So really, nobody that John Wilkes Booth was a part of. John Frederick Parker, he was a terrible police officer, walked off of his post. If he would have stayed on his post, Abraham Lincoln still be there today. The slate wiped clean. Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton had taken command the night Mr. Lincoln was shot, and he remains in command through the trial of the 8 conspirators. He was a far more powerful figure than the new president, Andrew Johnson. Stanton was a hard-driving, emotion-ridden man. Once the suspects were in his hands, he was determined to see them punished, and it did not matter whether the fine points of the law or of justice were observed. A great man had been murdered, and everyone connected with his death had to pay for the crime. That was the way Stanton figured, nor did he want to stop with the 8 already captured. He was convinced that top Southern leaders, even Confederate President Jefferson Davis himself, were involved in the slaying. The military commission, colonel, brigadier. Stanton also believed that the Confederate officials had planned to spread deadly germs, start fires, and poison the water supplies in large northern cities. They had schemed. Stanton was sure to set off explosions in Union ships and starve northern prisoners of war to death. He accused the South of planning the disorganization of the North by infernal plots. Most historians agree that Stanton's charges set the stage for his political group, the Radical Republicans, to impose a harsh post-war punishment on the South. And really, the South should have been fucking punished like a motherfucker. There wasn't a bigger friend than Abraham Lincoln. And they killed him on Good Friday. The Christians don't even fucking think about that type of shit. He was killed on Good Friday just like Jesus Christ was. And every time you spend a $5 bill, he is re-erected. Every time you say Abraham Lincoln's name, every time you aren't a racist piece of shit. It was the Radical Republicans who impeached President Andrew Johnson for his moderate policies. In 1868, came within one Senate vote of convicting him. Should have thrown the bastard out. May 1865, Jefferson Davis, other Confederates were still beyond Stanton's reach. That's right. The president of the Confederacy is still running around, motherfuckers. Does that mean the Confederacy won? That's pretty fucking close. We won those battles. We got Lee to surrender. And now Abraham Lincoln is dead. So who's the president of America? Does America continue? What the fuck? We were trying to form a more perfect union. He did have the 8 accused, and he was ready to make them pay. When the military commission convened on May 9th, none of the 8 had yet been permitted to choose a lawyer. Court adjourned for a single day to allow them to find counsel. The 8 were comparatively fortunate. Able attorneys offered their services free of charge. They volunteered to help, even though there was literally no time to prepare a defense. The lawyers could not even talk to their clients in their cells. The only place to confer was in the jammed courtroom, with the soldier guards hovering over them. Among the defense attorneys was Reverend D. Johnson, Attorney General under President Zachary Taylor, and U.S. Senator from Maryland, who acted for Mrs. Surratt. The others had similarly distinguished reputations. Trial lasted until the end of June, and more than 400 witnesses were heard. Each day, the 8 were brought from their cells to the raised dock in the courtroom. The men's hoods were removed, but Mrs. Surratt continued to wear her veil. Their leg irons were never taken off, and the guards had to carry the heavy balls chained to the men's legs as they walked from cell to courtroom. But none of the 8 ever took the stand. Stanton saw to that. O'Laughlin and Arnold evoked some sympathy from the spectators because of their youthful and pleasant appearances. Spangler, looking both surly and terrified by contrast, had a repellent appearance. So did Atzerodt and Harold. The spectators were not impressed by Dr. Mudd, who seemed negative, washed out. Mrs. Surratt, veiled, sat silent, a little apart from the 7 accused men, but whenever her daughter Annie visited her in her cell, the two sobbed and wept together. Louis Payne fascinated everybody, a black-haired giant of a young man. Even his true identity was clouded. His real name may have been Powell, and he may have been the son of a Baptist minister in Florida. No friend or relative ever visited him in his cell, and he kept himself under rigid control in the courtroom. He was the only one of the 8 who slept soundly at night.